As you can see from the title, Josh Jacobs didn't have the best childhood. He lived in a car with 4 other siblings and his dad, and barely had food in his stomach most of the time. But he didn't let that stop him from living his dream, and I'm going to tell you how it all happened. He grew up in a small town in Oklahoma called Tulsa, one of, if not the most dangerous cities in the state. And sadly, when he was just 8 years old, his parents split. Luckily for Jacobs, his father Marty would take custody of all 5 kids, and all he cared about was taking care and providing for them. But that choice made him a single father of 5, making it very difficult to keep all of them safe and happy. Living in such difficult circumstances, Josh needed an escape, and he found it on the gridiron. He was a natural, playing his high school snaps at McLean High School, a school that didn't produce a D1 prospect in 15 years, but Josh Jacobs was ready to snap that streak. However, no scout cared about McLean, because even though Jacobs averaged 135 yards a game and 14 touchdowns his senior season, they went 2-8 that year. Everyone within the area knew how good this kid was, but he wasn't getting recruited at all, despite him leading the state in rushing yards, which was so unfair for him. But he didn't let this stop him from achieving his dream. With Jacobs' senior season wrapped up, he didn't receive a single scholarship, and he couldn't afford college, so he threw one last Hail Mary, posting his highlights on Twitter. An odd choice at the time, but it worked. Coaches and scouts saw this tape and were baffled at what this kid was doing. By February, he was getting offers left and right, and eventually, he committed to the Tide. Although the running back room was stacked his true freshman year, Saban didn't suggest Jacobs to redshirt, so he didn't. And it was a great move, with over 700 all-purpose yards and 5 touchdowns, all of this at just 19 years old. Bama would lose to Clemson in the national championship game, and all that did was add fuel to the fire. Jacobs was ready for a breakout sophomore season. However, he would face another hardship, because that year, he totaled only 284 yards. Many people were wondering why he fell off so hard. The real reason may surprise you. He was playing off a broken ankle since week 5. That's why he was playing bad. Most people would call it a season after news like that, but Jacobs proved time and time again he wasn't most people. The following season, after ankle surgery, he was back to his old dominant self. Even with a loaded running back room, he was still the feature back, and he had an amazing season, with 880 yards and a whopping 14 touchdowns, more than how many games he played that year. With an amazing season like that, and a secure day 1 pick, Jacobs entered the 2019 NFL Draft. After getting overlooked in high school and college, Josh Jacobs finally got the recognition he deserved, getting picked 24th overall by the Raiders. Finally, all his hard work has paid off. He made it to the league, but he wasn't finished working hard and dominating just yet. Jacobs would immediately burst onto the scene in his first game with 110 all-purpose yards, and followed that game up with another 100-yard game against the Chiefs. His rookie season, he posted 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns, also placing second in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting behind Kyler Murray. He achieved all of this without playing in the last 3 games of the year with a quad injury. But either way, he really showed his worth to the Raiders and proved himself as a reliable back. His sophomore year, he had a career-high 12 touchdowns, another 1,200 yards, and a Pro Bowl. But Josh Jacobs did something else that year. He bought his dad a house, so Marty never had to worry about paying the bills or sleeping in a car ever again. This whole story came full circle. Unfortunately, the following season, Jacobs' injury issues would strike again, this time his ankle. The first game of the season, he would sprain it, and although he came back in week 4, he didn't play at 100% the entire season, with only 800 yards, his lowest since college. It became more and more apparent that Jacobs was getting increasingly more injury prone, and with just 2 more seasons left in his rookie contract, he needed to prove that his career is still just starting. And that he did, with a historic 3rd season, netting over 2,000 all-purpose yards, 12 touchdowns again, and a playoff berth with the Raiders that simply doesn't happen without him. An all-time great year that came out of nowhere. He made the Pro Bowl, was an All-Pro, and even placed top 5 in Offensive Player of the Year voting. The Raiders would lose in the wildcard round, but he came a long way in just 1 year. Now that takes us to last season, where Jacobs had a bit of a down year. With 1,000 total yards and 6 touchdowns, He again missed 4 games due to a quad injury, and with the Raiders rebuilding, they weren't interested in a short-term investment and they let him walk in free agency. But it was a blessing in disguise for him, because that led to Green Bay signing him to a 4-year, $48 million contract. With the 2024 season looming in less than 50 days, I'm rooting for him. This whole story is amazing. Growing up homeless, then getting ignored by every college if it wasn't for Twitter, fighting injuries, winning a national championship, getting drafted in the first round, and buying the one person who took care of you a house is insane. That's how Josh Jacobs went from homeless to an NFL star. And that's the rundown. Like and subscribe.